about this for a minute, and I don't know how y'all feel or if you care. Some of you may not care about the home run derby last night. Totally understand. Totally get it. Took a little bit of, I got to admit, Independence Day was on. And Independence Day is a television stopper for me. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum. I have forgotten the name of the president. I can't remember what exactly his name was. It's not Bill Pullman. But Independence Day is an absolute, it's on TV, stop the TV. That's where we're watching, right there. So I had to fight between Independence Day, so I had the two TVs going. That solved the issue. Netflix on one TV and Independence Day on the other. Good news, we defeated the aliens again. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, it's only been about 20 years since it came out. But yeah, we defeated the aliens again, so world is safe for now. We move on. But the home run derby, I was watching it, was listening to it. I thought they did a good job. I thought it was entertaining. You're trying to bring as much energy to it as possible. I thought they did a good job. I thought they did the best they could in that. I give it credit. I mean, they're trying. They're giving a legitimate effort, and I enjoy that, and I appreciate that. So we'll see where All-Star games in general, because that's what I'm interested in. All-Star games in general are really, 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 I think, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. I don't want to say the older group because I'm 44, but if you're in your 40s and you grew up watching the NBA All-Star game, which used to be phenomenal, it used to be, again, when we were growing up, it was, to me, it was must-see TV. Major League Baseball, the All-Star game, when I was growing up, it was must-see TV. And for both of them, I'm not counting the events that surround them, the three-point competition, the dunk contest, the home run derby, anything else they did in baseball. The whole weekends were incredible. It's been within the last 5, 6, 7 years I've gotten into hockey, and I've started taking interest, and I think hockey had a really good has had a good plan for their All-Star games the last 2 years. Look, there's nothing you can do with football, and I don't even blame the NFL, who knows how to figure things out. It's a violent sport. Nobody wants to get hurt playing an exhibition game in which it leads to nothing. They want to collect their check. They want to have a good time. I think what football's trying to do with the Pro Bowl and make it a fun weekend, I think that's entertaining, and but there's nothing they can do. The Pro Bowl will always be one of the most irrelevant sporting events in America. And if they were to not have a Pro Bowl and just give guys bonuses and call them Pro Bowlers, or have a dinner ceremony for them that we don't get to see, I would be perfectly fine with it. Nobody, say what you want, nobody would miss a thing. But last night, credit to the MLB, who I think shoots itself in the foot with marketing better than anybody else. The Netflix thing, and this is where I was going a second ago, at first it bothered me. You have this great event. You can't put it on regular television, regular streaming or cable television in terms of YouTube or DirecTV or Spectrum or whatever it may be. And then I thought about it. The more and more I kind of thought about it, NFL is going to some Netflix games, including some big games. I think, Christmas Day. Netflix is trying to get into the sporting world. And I think probably of all the streamers, Netflix is probably the most popular. I didn't think to look that up last night, but I would think the vast majority of us have Netflix. And so the more I thought about it, I was like, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Now, you start showing World Series games, or you start actually showing the real All-Star game, which is tonight. Tonight, by the way, it's on Fox. But you start showing that on a streaming network, kind of like what we talked about if the Super Bowl ever goes pay-per-view. Remember a long time ago, the controversy was that the Super Bowl at some point was going to be on pay-per-view. Are you old enough to remember this? That they saw it coming, that the Super Bowl was going to be a pay-per-view event?
I vaguely remember something about that because there was the period of time where the NFL started putting games on like the NFL Network and stuff like that, which wasn't accessible to everybody. And yeah, there was that fear. I do remember, which I don't think the NFL's ever going to go down that road because that does limit your viewership to a degree. But yeah, I do remember those concerns at least.
Well, the bottom line is, they've learned. I mean, again, I don't know how many of you have Amazon Prime or Amazon or Prime, whatever the television is called for that, to watch the Thursday night games. And those have become more and more interesting. They've put better and better teams on there to actually give us a reason to watch. They've stopped doing away with those really stupid, ugly, what were they called? Power Rush or
Color Rush,
yeah, whatever it was. Uniforms.
Well, that was a Nike thing.
Well, they've stopped doing away with that stupid stuff. Like, kudos to the NFL. You've destroyed something I loved that I held near and dear, and that was college football Thursday nights. But the NFL has come a long way with what they're developing on Thursday night. But again, last night, Tyler, I give it a B. I give it a B+. I'll go to B+. I was pleasantly pleased, surprised with the overall event of the Home Run Derby.
Mm-hmm.
I think because baseball, I do think outside of the purist and the old-timers, I think baseball's thought very lowly of because they do continuously screw stuff up. But I think last night was a lot of fun. Just didn't get the recognition it should.
I think that took a big step back in the right direction with the format because I have been a big critic of using the timer during the Home Run Derby because it emphasizes getting a lot of pitches and swings in over a period of 2-3 minutes, however long they had, to the point where you had to have like the split screen, right? Where you couldn't like watch each home run go out or each ball go out, where last night, knowing you had a limited number of pitches, okay, pitch, swing, all right, let's see where the ball goes. Pitch, swing, let's see where the ball goes. And it builds up anticipation and drama, especially as you got into the final round there with Schwarber and Jordan Walker. Like, okay, Jordan Walker now has to hit 4 straight home runs or 5 straight, however many he needed to win this thing. Pitch, boom, there it goes. Pitch, boom, there it goes. And it just built up that anticipation that, again, I think allows you to appreciate each swing and each hit as opposed to trying to beat a clock and get in as many swings as you can over a period of time.
Yeah, again, I said that. I don't think it stands for you because you're 15 years younger than me, but the nostalgia of 90s home run derbies, and again, some of it, like I said, there was, I don't know, some dude, Griffin, Gainey, whatever. Number 24 for the Mariners, backwards hat, beautiful, just gorgeous swing, great personality. Now a photographer, by the way. I don't know. You name so many people in that rolled through. Look, say what you want about them. This isn't a debate on should they be in the Hall of Fame or anything. But say what you want about Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, all those guys being in the Home Run Derby. That was they were named. Jordan Clark last night. Kudos. Now, mind you, I don't follow baseball to the T, so I have no idea who Jordan Clark is.
Jordan Walker.
Oh, Jordan. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jordan Clark is a football recruit. Jordan Thomas is the football recruit South Carolina landed. Jordan Thomas, too many Jordans. But anyway, my point that I'm trying to get to is, Tyler, those days, I mean, just look, let me read you the winners going back to my nostalgic days that I was just referring to. 1995. You ever heard of the Big Hurt?
Yeah.
Old Frank Thomas.
Oh, he does those commercials now.
Yeah. Wait, doesn't he do testosterone commercials?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. 1995, it was Frank Thomas. What a big name. Huge name. 96, some dude that say might have been on steroids or PEDs and cream and rinse. Barry Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just that name being in it. 97, Tino Martinez. I was more of a baseball fan, so I understood Tino Martinez then. 98, again, that Ken Griffey Jr. dude from Seattle. And then he won it in 99 again. Griffey Jr., by the way, took home 3 titles, 94, 98, and 99. 2000, again, some dude, maybe there were PEDs, maybe there wasn't, doesn't matter. Sammy Sosa.
Mm-hmm.
You see my point? Like,
Yeah.
that to me, I mean, again, that's kind of my high school, middle school, high school, beginning of college era.
Sure.
And those names right there are just nostalgic. And then if I start reading to you now, the guys, again, no offense to Jordan Walker, Cal Riley is at least building a name for him. Teoscar Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. 03 was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Okay. 22 was Juan Soto. 21, I've never figured out if this guy's a good baseball player or just hits it long. I like him. Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso a good baseball player, or does he just hit home runs?
It's a great question. Definitely hits a lot of home runs.
Okay. All right. Now, I will say you had a run of big names.
Yeah.
Go there for a while. 16 was Giancarlo Stanton. 2017 was Aaron Judge. 2018 was Bryce Harper.
Yeah, and look, like last night, you had Bryce Harper, who was in this thing. I feel like Kyle Schwarber's a pretty prominent name around baseball, but the casual fan knows.
I was kind of pulling for him to win.
Yeah, well, you had the crowd behind him, and I thought that set up perfectly last night because with Walker going last, they obviously knew the number that he had to beat, and they're just getting more and more angry as it goes along. I'm surprised they weren't throwing stuff at him by the end of the thing, but like Philly fans being Philly fans and this dude just being like ice water in his veins, just cranking home runs left and right, set up for a really cool ending to that thing with the way that it went down. But yeah, I mean, look, Jordan Walker's not somebody that every casual baseball fan is going to know, but obviously went out there and earned it. And, we'll, I guess, see what the numbers from the Netflix broadcast end up being in terms of if Major League Baseball is going to look at this the same way next year or not. But again, I think the format was a big win last night, added to the drama, added to the excitement, and I enjoyed it. I was thoroughly entertained for a couple hours.
Yeah, I was. Between that and Independence Day. Great night. 803-404-6100. We'll talk some college ball, South Carolina. What is Shane Beamer kind of defined by? Tyler's got some theories. I've got another one that I don't think he gets credit for, and it goes into his overall resume. And then I know you've been waiting on this. I know that I have kept y'all patiently waiting, and I apologize. Schedule's busy, but I had some free time today. I stopped by one of the local retailers, and I looked at the Nike Garnet Red. I was going in. I'm going to speak to prices when we come back, not just for Nike, but I looked at the Garnet Red. I got an opinion. On the shade of garnet, the color, whatever you want to call it, that is on the shirts for the Garnet shirts. We'll get into that. So a fashionista segment, and we'll talk about Shane Beamer's legacy as we get the show going. It is the Wednesday episode of the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years. I'm talking about almost 30 years ago when I was watching the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. 30 years is a long time, folks. I mean, do you know how hard it is to be a leader in your industry, to do things so well that you're considered number one for 30 years and longer? That's what Mid-State Roofing has done. I talk about their customer service all the time. Absolutely phenomenal. They're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let's be honest. You don't think about your roof. Who really does? Who is walking around constantly thinking about their roof? But when you have a heavy thunderstorm, hail is coming, you got bad winds, now you're thinking about your roof, and it needs to make sure it's protected. Call Mid-State Roofing today to line up a maintenance contract. 803-356-1919. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Are you ready? Are you ready? I know y'all been waiting. I know you've been waiting patiently. I know that every day you flip on, you're like, is this today? Is this the... There we go. Look at it. I'm still athletic. I just pulled
That was impressive.
two pieces of paper off the ground with my feet and handed it to my hands. Yeah, I know that every day y'all tune in. Has Gunner seen the new Garnet? Has Gunner seen the new Nike stuff? What's his thoughts? He's a fashionista. What does exactly he think? Well, finally today I had about 20 minutes, and I stopped by a retailer and wanted to check it out. Let me start with this thought. Clothing is expensive.
Yes, it is.
I shop a lot when I buy stuff online, which, you know, I mean, there's shirts I buy. They're $60, $70 hook shirts and some other different. I'm trying to think of everything that I've bought, you know, pants and stuff. But, I mean, they're not. I tell you, my purchases of $100 or more are saved for like watches.
Yeah.
Tennis shoes, occasionally, stuff like that. I don't buy like $130 shirts. And so let's just say, and I'll say some of the brands, like I think it's Roebuck or Roback. I can't remember. It's got the little dog.
Roback.
Roback. I've never owned one of those because that company, Peter Millar. There was another one that I liked, one of the shirts. Southern Tide was in there. So you know, like everything I looked at was 100 and basically 120 upwards.
Like for a dress shirt, like a polo shirt,
or a nice polo. Peter Millar had a $225. Like it was nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if I'm wearing it today. How many of y'all are going to come up and be like, ooh, you know, like now I've noticed in life, if I wear a decent watch that's a pretty watch that's like $70, people be, oh, where'd you get? What is that?
Yeah.
Where'd you get that? I like that. And I don't wear watches quite as much right now because my wrists have shrank, and I've got to go get a bunch of links taken out of some of the watches that I wear. But I've noticed people go, but if you wear like a really nice like pullover that's 140, more than likely people are trying to spill something on it.
Sure. Well, or you're going to spill something on it yourself. Like that's the day you dump coffee in your lap, and you're like, well, that just ruined my $140 pullover.
Yeah. So I was a little blown back by what we're charging for polos and pullovers now. So, but I'll readdress that situation in August when I have myself a shopping day. But very impressive year. Now, Nike. Have you were there?
Yeah.
You got to see it. Let me ask you first. What was your impression of the garnet color that you saw?
Again, I will throw this out there. I am partially colorblind, so
true. Okay.
You can't take my word for it. I thought it looked fine. Is there a slight difference? Yes, but I didn't feel like it was egregious. But again, I may be seeing it differently than other people. So don't take my word to be gospel on that.
I thought it looked great. I thought it honestly,
but you can tell a difference, right?
It's not. You know what? I'm not being funny. I walked around the store and looked at everything, and here was the difference. The Nike youth jerseys looked 10 times better made than the Under Armour. And obviously, having a 14-year-old son, for the last several years, we've bought Under Armour jerseys. And I think the youth jersey was, again, like, I don't know, it was expensive. It wasn't cheap. So I didn't buy one today. It'll be a Christmas present. But the bottom line is, I looked at that and was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually, that's a jersey that I'm not sure you allow your kid to go play football outside at a tailgate and get a grass stain on it. You know, like they start playing football during the tailgate, and you're like, take that off, son. Here's a T-shirt.
No, we're eating hot wings. You're going to take the jersey off while reading them. Yeah, you're not ruining that.
We're not wasting. But I thought the garnet, because this has been a hot topic on the message boards and some on Twitter. I thought the garnet looked good. I give it a 10 out of 10. If that's what South Carolina's jerseys are going to look like, and it appears what we've seen is what we're going to get, which is essentially the Under Armour jersey, just now Nike material and a Nike swoosh. Count me in. I'm good with it. I mean, look, wins are what matters, and we're going to talk about that. But yes, no, I think that the color scheme, settle down. It's good.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of that was just kind of initial outrage, day one type of thing. But I've seen that die off quite a bit in the days and weeks since. And look, if they're out there winning games, they could be wearing yellow for all we care, right? It's about going out there and putting the product and putting the right product on the field. But yeah, I could see a difference in the garnet, but I didn't have a problem with it.
Real quick, don't do this to me, Texter. It's Tuesday, Bill. We hit the break. I said it was Wednesday because I legitimately thought it was Wednesday.
Yeah, like, trying to jump ahead.
That's how my days go. Literally, that's how my day is going. This is the first 5 hours of my day to get here. Been a little wild and crazy. Brad weighs in and says the polos and jerseys are red. Some of the T-shirts are closer to garnet. I did not agree with. Now, I will say, and I've noticed this with Under Armour and with Adidas and everything. In the vast majority of the time, if you put a white, like stripes, yeah, it dull or it lightens the garnet and can do that. I thought the polos, the legit garnet polos were garnet. As a matter of fact, I'll go as far as to say this: if they never change the color on that, I'm good with it. Another texter says the Florida State garnet, the same as the South Carolina garnet. No, according to the color scheme, whatever they're called, the numbers, however they are actually called. No, it's not. But I didn't think at all that it looked like Florida State garnet. Like I thought, again, I'll say this: I thought it looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think you can feel it. Now, let me add a caveat real quick. Generally speaking, in the summer, I wear in the early games, I go with T-shirts. It's just, to me, polos, even the thin ones, I don't go with polos. Mainly because we're tailgating. There's a grill involved. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. And I have before taken T-shirts and then switched into a polo to walk into the game. But I thought the polos looked great. As far as you go, I'm not that they're not cheap. Like, there's a small loan involved. Sure. Well, you pay for good quality. I guess I don't. That's the trade-off. But there were some things. But to go back again, I normally wear white or black, and there was some kind of thinner long sleeve T-shirts that I really liked. So just to go back to the uniform discussion for a minute, because we're during summertime. I thought personally the garnet looked pretty good. 803-404-6100. We'll actually get into some football talk. What is Shane Beamer? 803-404-6100. Okay, during the break-in right now, and some of y'all are texting in, so now that lets me know you are officially able to text. What right now defines Shane Beamer? Is it 2 wins over Clemson in Memorial Stadium? Is it the back-to-back wins against Tennessee and Clemson? Is it the 4-game? Is it the 6-game win streak to be 9-3? Is it going 4-8 last year? Like, if somebody says Shane Beamer, what is your one-sentence comeback? What defines Shane Beamer? Tyler's got an answer to that. I'll weigh in on that as well. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is, not today, it doesn't look like, but it is grilling season, although you don't always have to grill the food you pick up. You can cook it inside, cook it in the stove, cook it in a cast iron skillet. When you go to cook, though, for dinner, for lunch, for breakfast, there's no place you need to stop at until you go to Old Timey Meat Market. I don't know what you're looking for. A delicious steak. Austin and I go pick up steaks all the time from there. Maybe it's some great pork chops. I haven't had the pork chop, but they look great. You got wonderful marinated chicken. They do it in their little Pirates Gold sauce. Absolutely fantastic. And I'll recommend the chicken. Here's my recommendation on the chicken at Old Timey Meat Market. They have Italian chicken skewers, relatively cheap. I'm going to tell you right now, you got a family of four skewers will more than feed your family. Find out for yourself. Go visit one of the 3 locations, South Congaree, St. Andrews Road, or the Lexington store. Old Timey Meat Market. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. So what is, if I ask you, what is Shane Beamer defined by so far, in your opinion? And there might be some moronic opinions. I already got one in sent on my text, but there's no wrong answer because it's your opinion. It's your opinion. It's not fact. It's just your opinion. So I'm interested to hear, though, your opinion. What is Shane Beamer defined by in 5 seasons?
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years as a Gamecock head coach.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of y'all have weighed in so far. Steven weighs in, defined by blowing leads, and gets a pass for it. That's not, here, I will say this, Steven, and I will say this to everybody. Somebody posted, I didn't realize this, and I'm still wrapping my head around this, and I thought about texting. By the way, I fell asleep last night.
Okay.
Passed out. I lost my phone, passed out, never got back to you. That's behind the curtains. Tyler and I text every night to figure out what we're going to talk about. But I read this on, I believe, the Big Spur. And to kind of go to Steven's point, it's not wrong, but I never thought of it this way. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
When you look back, because when you brought that up, that's a great question. When you brought it up, my first thought was, okay, is this something he's actually defined by? But when I read you this, I think you have to kind of look back and be like, I didn't see it this way. I want you to tell me what you think. In, 23, right? They played Florida at home?
Yep.
7 minutes to go, they're up 10 on Florida and lose.
Correct.
Second quarter, 12 minutes to go against LSU, they're up 17-0 and lose.
Yep.
Obviously, some game in College Station this year, 30-3 at halftime and lose. Alabama, 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, up 8 and lose. Now, 5-year tenure, three specific games. But I guess the point of that is you look at all that, those are double-digit leads. Well, I guess Alabama's not.
Multi-score leads.
Multi-score leads.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, however you want to look at Alabama, 8-point lead.
All right, okay.
Not a touchdown or less.
Which, if I remember correctly, they could have gone for 2 and been up 9 points. And that was when Joe DeCamillis got mad at people asking him that question last year, which I thought was weird. But regardless, they had leads that they could not hold on to.
And so while I say what I say about that I didn't agree with is Steven says, well, he gets a pass. I don't know if he gets a pass because there's been a lot that's happened in his tenure, and this is what I'll go back to. But the point about blowing lead, and then you look at it and you're like, that's actually not that's something.
I will say, I don't think he gets a pass, certainly not from this fan base. I will say, to the question of kind of what defines Shane Beamer right now, he's got to shake that A&M loss by doing something significant to get that out of people's minds because, and again, we talk about him every single day, talk about this program every single day, but from a national standpoint, that's the last thing that people remember about South Carolina because that was in, 2-3 weeks to go in the regular season. And again, that was a game, Carolina, I guess technically was still in bowl contention, but nobody was paying attention to Carolina going to A&M because, all right, they're going to go in there, get beat by 30 points and whatever. But when you have a 27-point lead over the number whatever team they were in the country at that point in time, everybody starts changing the channel. Oh, man, Carolina's going to pull off the upset. This is going to be crazy. They're going to hurt, A&M's playoff chances and all this kind of stuff. And then you blow it while everybody's tuning in to see if you're going to pull it off. That is what most people think of the last time they think of South Carolina. So you have to go out there and do something significant this year to get that taste out of people's mouth. Because as of right now, you're the team, you're the program that blew the 27-point lead, and you have to go out there and beat somebody significant to kind of erase that in people's minds.
Do you?
I think you do. I think you do.
I think if South Carolina had gone to a bowl or had been in, I think when you go 4-8, people put it out the memory a little bit more.
But that was so significant for how bad of a collapse that was. Regardless of what the season was for South Carolina, that is like, when people think of that team last year, they may not think of anything else. Like, oh, yeah, they blew that 27-point lead to A&M in College Station, right? Like, that is something you have to shake that's going to take a significant win or significant wins to make people forget about that.
Obviously, that was the tail end of a 5-game losing streak. They would beat Coastal Carolina the next weekend. But what impressed me, if you will, about that blown 27-point lead, Tyler, is it didn't take 30 minutes for it to be blown.
No, it happened pretty quickly.
That actually, I think, sometimes gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, is that A&M scored the touchdown to take the lead relatively early.
It's like 10 minutes to go in the fourth,
In
right?
the fourth, yes.
Yeah.
That's the one where I'm like, because, you're like, all right, well, they came back from 4, but they scored with under 3 minutes to go.
Sure.
All right, okay.
It took them the entire second half to get that back, but no, it roughly took about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
They scored with 10:47 left to go in the fourth quarter. So there was over 10 minutes to go. I think if South Carolina had finished 5 and 7, and that was the definition of going to a bowl game, which I get it, 6-6 bowl games are what they are, but you get the practice. Who knows what you get? You can play. Like there's a momentum thing to that, but I think not going to. I think that's also the difference.
Well, and it's really funny, coming away from that game as we were talking about it on that Monday, the amount of people that all collectively said that when Marcel Reed converted that fourth down on their first drive of the second half, still down 27 points, that's when everybody got nervous.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, wait a minute, because it was like 4th and 10, 4th and 12, something like that, and he converted with ease. That's when everybody got nervous, and obviously it all came unraveled from there. But it is funny how collectively people had a similar experience with that play.
Yeah, it's kind of like Florida. Yeah, the Florida. I'll be honest. As crazy as it sounds, 27 points and how that went down is bad. But the blown game to Florida at Williams-Brice, that to me is a worse blown loss than A&M. I know the point difference, but the way that Florida, especially because you have Florida, what was it, 4th and
it was multiple fourth downs. There was a couple different fourth downs,
but there was one on 4th and 11 or 13, and Florida basically throws a behind the line. There's nowhere to go with it, and South Carolina's got 3 guys surrounding the receiver, and he gets absolutely.
It was the Ricky Pearsall game.
Well, then that's the other one is where who does it have? Nick Eamon-Worry, it hits him in the helmet or head or something. Well, how do you define Shane Beamer? Because you said in here 6-game win streak or the Tennessee Clemson victory.
Well, I think it's a combination. I really think it's 8 games, right? Because Shane Beamer's won 33 games in his time at South Carolina. Those are the most significant 8. Now, one of those games in the 6-game win streak was Wofford, but still, it was a win streak nonetheless. Like, that's kind of what you have to hang your hat on. Now, again, great wins in there. You beat 2 teams that were destined for the playoff in Tennessee and Clemson, and then you beat a top 10 A&M team. You beat a ranked Missouri team. You beat another ranked Clemson team at the very end of the season. So there's good ones mixed in there, but outside of those 8 games, he has coached 63 games at South Carolina. Outside of those 8 games, it's kind of like, what else do you have? I don't really know. There's other wins in there. None of them crazy significant.
We can pick and choose this game, that game, this game, that game. We can say the games against number 1s or number 2s or number 5s. But obviously, if you mix and match that 8-game win streak, and I think as you mentioned, 1 came against Wofford. The other 7. Who was? Do we know real quick? 6-game win streak: Oklahoma, Missouri, A&M.
Yep.
Wofford, Clemson, and I'm leaving 1 out somewhere in there. But the point being is, in that run, you're right. There was 3 games that you would say are toss-ups.
Vanderbilt also.
Vanderbilt, okay.
Yep.
All right. So 3 games that you really consider toss-ups out of those 8. If you remove some of those losses, it's closer to 29 and 30 or 29 and 33, 31 and what is that? That would be 31 and 32. Yeah, point is something of that nature. And so I do understand. I'll give you my take when we come back, and we'll wrap up hour number 1. It's the halftime show. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, you know, the company I was just talking about, the one that's been there for you for 30 years, making sure your roof, your home, your business, everything stays nice and dry, high and running. We're all through these heavy summer thunderstorms that we tend to get, hail, high winds, heavy rains. So as we roll into the back half of the summer, make sure you have a maintenance contract lined up. Let me tell you, Midstate is the ultimate professional. At Midstate Roofing, they design and install bonded systems with a protective guarantee that keeps your operation dry and running long into the future. And they're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's right. You can give them a call at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You'll have an on-call technician answer. 803-356-1919. All right, bear with me on this, and you can say I'm an apologist, that I'm giving Beamer a pass, and maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Here's how I see the first 5 years. Now, I agree with y'all, by the way. I totally agree. A lot of y'all are weighing in on what defines Shane Beamer, and I think the word is inconsistency. And that's very, very fair. That is very, very, very fair. I think I agree 110%. That's kind of where I'm going. I'll get to some of these text messages. Y'all keep weighing in with them. Keith and Candace is spot on with the Texas A&M debacle. Jay from the Interstate, defined by inconsistency, bad offensive lines, and inconsistent offenses. I think actually you saying inconsistent offenses might slightly be a little bit of praise to him because, aside from about 4 games. I mean, you know, you go back to that Oklahoma game that they won. That wasn't done because of the offense.
Yeah,
that was a defense performance. But to your point, I like inconsistency. Andy saying the same thing, defined by inconsistency. Buddy B goes win-loss record. Yeah, that's I think I'm back and forth on that. But here's where I go on this. South Carolina took a coach who needed experience. Now whether this is an SEC school. Do you take a coach who has to learn on the job, who's never experienced? Shane Beamer was a first-time coach. I don't really buy into the coordinator against other positional coaches. If you're good, you're good. It's just kind of that simple. Dabo Swinney was never a coordinator, but I do think that there was a learning curve for being a head coach. All the things you got to handle, the media, the alumni base, coaching, now NIL, transfer, all these things. There's a lot going on for head football coaches. And when you're an established coach, you're used to doing it. When you're learning, every day is a little bit of a new challenge.
Sure.
Now, you can tell me Ray Tanner shouldn't have hired Shane Beamer if that was the case. That's fine. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you what I think. I think Shane Beamer doesn't get enough credit for year one.
Okay.
That was a bad football. I'm sorry. That was a bad football. No offense to any of those players that are listening right now, or if they are.
Well, when you have to start a grad assistant at quarterback, that tells you a lot.
Here's what they started 4 quarter, kind of a asterisk, but the Kerryon Joyner starts in game 13 in the book. When you start 4 quarterbacks and you end up with a winning record, and like you said, one of them is a grad assistant, that's, again, how did you get there? That's a good year. And if you think about it, going back to it, there were some very embarrassing losses. Georgia and Texas A&M really stand out. But the end of the season, Kentucky was kind of at their peak, I think it's fair to say, and South Carolina was able to beat them. And you beat Missouri. Auburn. I'm sorry. You beat Auburn that year, and that was an Auburn team that was frankly flat out better than you. Poorly coached that game, but flat out better than you. So I give him credit for year one. I give him a B plus for year one. Year two, C minus D. No kind of a lot of injuries.
Sure,
but again, that Florida game puts you at 6-6. Things should have been a little bit different. Obviously, year three, people forget. I mean, they're both closer to being 10-2, and both closer to being like 6-6.
Yeah,
you lose that Clemson game. They're 9-3, but you lose that Clemson game. Great play by Lenoris, and you lose the Missouri play. Great game back and forth. Incredible plays by Lenoris. Great run by Rocket. 7-5. We aren't having the same conversations about, well, he did go 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
So, to that point, y'all are right. I think inconsistency, and then last year stunk, and there's no reason last year should have been 4-8. We've talked about it. What happened with that team? Why did they blow the A&M game? Is the exclamation point on blowing games, right?
Right.
Because again, you go back, you're up on Missouri, you're up on Bama, you're down by 6 to LSU. I think you're down by 7 to Mississippi, down 6 or 7 to Mississippi in that game. Oklahoma's the only loss you had. I think Oklahoma's might have been one other that I'm blanking on, but Oklahoma was the only loss you had where you went to the fourth quarter down by more than a touchdown. So you didn't at all last year. Normally some teams win 1 or 2 of those close games, and again, that would have put you at 6-6. I'm not defending it. I'm just telling y'all that's so. Inconsistency. I'm good with that word, but I've also a little more to the positive with Shane than I am to the negative because I just what Will Muschamp left when it was all said and done was not good, and also this fan base was way down. This fan base was truly broken, and I think the football program was more broken than almost when Brad Scott left it for Lou Holtz.
Yeah, because that 21 team was, I think, expected to win 2 games, which would have been on par with the season before. So, yeah, they drastically exceeded expectations, made a bowl, won the bowl, which, again, was better than I think anybody ever expected that first-year team to do. So I think you do have a point that maybe he doesn't get enough credit for what year number one was, because that's, at this point, 20% of his tenure so far. That's a fair point.
Yeah. We'll continue. If you want to weigh in, a lot of y'all are. I'll get to the text messages. I'll get to them. I apologize if you want to call in. Coming up next, we'll get into a few new topics from an article on the biggest SEC games taking place to a few other things. Also, coming up at 1:30 today, Chris Gordy will join us from the Locked On SEC podcast, and we'll talk SEC football. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air, the company that has literally saved me. Literally. I mean, if it wasn't for AAA Heating and Air, I don't know where I would be. My heating and air unit went out a few years ago. I needed a brand new one. Roy and Dana Finley, the AAA Heating and Air family, took care of me. They came out, installed a brand new train unit. Let me tell you something. And I don't have a big house, about 1,400 square foot, but we've got it running on 76 right now, and I think I live in the Arctic. I have never experienced anything like this where it feels like normally my home should be a lot cooler or have to be a lot cooler during the summer like this. man, that heating and air unit is working beautifully. So call or get in touch with AAA Heating and Air. Call AAAtoday.com. That's how you can reach them. Call AAAtoday.com. Go on their website. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. All kinds of great deals going on. You need to check it out right now while you're sitting there at the office. Short segment here because we will we got some time stuff that we're going to deal with this hour. Chris Gordy from Locked On the SEC. So we're going to talk a bunch of SEC with him as we kind of continue our all-around preview leading up to next week, which I have not looked at this and because it just kind of dawned on me. Do we know what time? I'm sure we do know what time Shane speaks. Is it an afternoon session? I think it's morning session.
We don't actually. We don't have a confirmation on that yet. I don't believe. I don't think they have the official time schedule out yet of who's speaking when next week.
Let's look that back up. I thought they did, but looked at earlier today. It was announced South Carolina's representatives that will go. Lenora Sellers makes a repeat appearance. Nick Harbor, and Peyton Williams.
Yep.
Thoughts on that?
Makes sense. Obviously, Sellers is the face of your program. Harbor, one of the other big names. And I think Harbor, really good talker. Anytime we've had him in here, you've heard him do media stuff, really well-spoken, somebody that I think can speak highly and well of the program, where things are at as of right now. And much like they did last year with DQ Smith, taking him along, a veteran defensive back in Peyton Williams, who, again, slid into a very important role, taking over for Eamon Worry a year ago, and is expected to do a lot of big things this upcoming year. So it's kind of on par with the typical type of group that Beamer likes to take with him.
Do you consider this? I've never thought of it. We hear about this. Like, I guess it's an honor. It's an honor to go and represent. Do you see it a prize for like a senior like Peyton Williams, a DQ Smith? Because I feel like you take your stars.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to Dylan Stewart. If you've heard Dylan's
He's not a talker.
Not a talker, yeah. Yeah, and he very well may just be like, I'm good, coach. I'm good. Because I would imagine you'd want to take him, but I would imagine he might just be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. Nick is very, I think, how do I say it? I'm not being mean to anybody. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to praise Nick Harbor, but I'm going to feel like I put down people. Nick might be one of the best representatives of the University of South Carolina I've seen come through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at his community work and getting out there, I'm not addressing anybody specifically. I'm not saying the easiest thing in college football. We've seen it at a lot of other schools. Collect your NIL check. Stay away from everybody. Just get your money and be you. Be you. Just And Nick is out there. He's doing football camps with little kids, and if you've seen some of the videos of him, he's interacting with them. He's not just standing off to the side with 15 different counselors out there. He's interacting. He's taking questions at the very end. Nick Harbor is a phenomenal representative for the University of South Carolina, and I think we're all pulling for him to have that senior season, that big.
Sure.
I don't think it'll happen, but obviously I think a lot of us couldn't be happier if South Carolina has a good record and Nick Harbor catches 60 balls, 10 touchdowns, is close to 1,000 yards, and goes first round next year.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you what, he's going to if he will be in the NFL, he's going to represent the university with a lot of dignity.
Well, he's somebody that speaks well and things. Also very confident too.
Yeah.
Like the self-confidence that guy oozes is something you don't see out of everyone, and I think that's a good thing to have, especially because here's the thing: Media Day is about selling your program. Right. For Coach Beamer's going to get up there. Every other coach in the SEC is going to get up there and talk about how great their offseason's been, how excited they are about this group of guys, the hires they made in the offseason, and why they're going to go compete for championships. Again, most of those coaches are going to be wrong because at the end of the day, only so many teams can be that successful. But in terms of selling your program to the media, to the country, which is what Media Days is for, I can't think of a better person to do that than Nick Harbor, because he exudes that confidence in himself and in this team, and I think he's going to be great in that setting next week.
And I like, you took Lenoris last year, but I like taking Lenoris because it feels like you are, again, pushing him to be more of a vocal leader on this team. Like, hey, Lenoris, this is your team. These are your – we've got to ride you a little bit more from a leadership. I made that comment last year.
Yeah.
And got an angry tweet from a certain ball coach that it just felt like – and I know Shane was joking when he said it. I know Shane wasn't being serious. But – it's one of those things, having me coached a little bit, and obviously not at the college level, but and not knowing Lenoris Sellers. You're in there having a meeting, and at the very end, Lenoris is like, well, what helmets are we wearing? I get it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time and place for everything, and I made the comment, Lenoris, it felt like that leadership that you need. Not that he's out there goofing off and he's going out partying every night or doing whatever, but that you need wasn't there. Now, it feels like they've pushed him, and we've heard comments – they're pushing him to kind of be a little bit more of that guy who will get on guys, who is going to be, I don't want to say take things a little more serious, but there's a little bit more of a focus on you're the guy.
Yeah.
People look to you. That's hard for these. Let's be honest. That's hard for some of these college kids to go in there and you're a superstar. And Lenoris really became a superstar kind of overnight. We here were thrilled about him. We were excited. He starts Old Dominion. Oh, boy, here we go. By November of 2024, he's not a local story. He's a national story. in May of 2025, he's all over the map. Heisman contender, potential top 5 pick, everything you want. Maybe SEC Player of the Year. Is he the top quarterback in the SEC? Like, he was everywhere. He wasn't a local story. He was all over the country. And there's articles. He turned down $8 million by Auburn. Like, I get it, and I'm not trying to defend him. That's a lot on a young man to throw at you when you go from being one town, one city, one state's kid to the nation's.
Yeah. And there's a balance because, again, he's just kind of a quieter guy by trade, somebody that is more of a I speak through my actions type stuff. Because, again, we've seen him be the best player on the field through a lot of his career here at South Carolina, and that's typically what he does to go out there and show you his abilities as a leader. He's not the guy that jumps up on a table and gives the Braveheart speech before running out of the tunnel. And I don't know, you don't try and turn him into that guy, but you would like him to be more vocal than he is. And I think, as we've heard, and again, we had him on at Media Days last year, he's becoming more open than he was initially. Because I remember, I think it was me and Wes, we had him here in studio for a Garnet Trust Hour. This would have been at the end of 2023, so December of that year. Again, relative unknown to everyone outside of the Columbia bubble, but man, we had to ask him 100 questions that hour because he just didn't expand on things. And I think you're seeing that change a lot more because he's understanding his role as the face of the program, as one of the quarterbacks that at his best can be one of the best, not only the SEC, but in college football. And we'll see how much that has changed and improved when we hear from him next week.
803-404-6100. When we come back, Locked on the SEC, or Locked on SEC podcast host, and also does a bunch of other things. He is an on-air personality in Houston at Sports Talk 790. Chris Gordy joins us to talk SEC football. You're listening to The Halftime Show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. Tell you about it all the time, but I'll remind you once again, you always need to be on the lookout. Things around your home that are a little bit off. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in and above windows and door frames, doors and windows that might be sticking, uneven bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. And that's where our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule your appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues, get them fixed right so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, do not hesitate. These issues will only continue to get worse. Go online to cantycanfixit.com. Let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists help you out with your home's foundation needs.
All righty. We're about 10 seconds away from 1:40 on your afternoon. Talking a lot of South Carolina football again. Representatives for SEC Media Days being put out there earlier today. And at least from a South Carolina standpoint, I think the great choice, well represented. We'll talk more about it. By the way, Dave, you said South Carolina is set for 3rd next Tuesday? Okay.
Wait, so now did they put out the official time, or are you just looking at the list of speakers?
Okay. Well, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Because he shows up 3rd in the list of speakers, but I don't know if that specifically means he can be the 3rd speaker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
We need like a confirmation on time.
Yeah. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's do a little. Normally we don't work very hard around here. Let's do a little more detective work and get to the bottom of that. Joining us now, straight out of Houston, host on 790 Sports Talk, also host of the Locked On SEC podcast, part of the Locked On Network, Chris Gordy, who, Chris, I got to admit, I thought I had you on before. I thought we had talked, and then I couldn't find your phone number last night and had to tweet DM you. So, all right, welcome to the program. How you doing, my man?
Doing good, man. Yeah, I think we've chatted a few times over the years at media days. There's those faces of people you see all the time at media days, and you just, you put a name with a face, and it's like, you maybe chat in passing, or you've talked once or twice over the years. But yeah, definitely, I feel like I've been on in presence before. By the way, quick note: Tuesday, Beamer is the last coach to go. I think he hits about 3:00. So that's what the schedule says, 3:00. So.
Where can we find that full schedule? Because I've been looking everywhere for it.
It is in the Digital Drive information email they just sent this afternoon.
Okay,
gotcha.
I will look for it there. Thank you very much for that.
That, my good friends, is why we have experts on to tell us all about that. Thank you, Chris, for doing that. Let's get into it. You are the host of Locked On SEC. You can check out that great podcast. You can also go to his Twitter account at Locked On SEC. And so, big picture here, I want you to start where we're at. Being out there in Houston and looking from afar, your thoughts, your feelings on South Carolina, what they return, and your thoughts on Shane Beamer. How do you see him as he goes into year 6?
Well, I'll say this. Like, we've had Shane Beamer on the show a couple times over the years. I like him as a person. His personality is great. I mean, he's a real likable guy, easy to root for. I love when he gets fiery on the sidelines, when he's wanting to fight Brett Bielema and stuff like that. I mean, I just love him as a person. But as you guys know, this is a result-oriented business. And when you look at the reality of things, 16-24 in the SEC, 9-15 in conference play his last 3 seasons, this is a pivotal season for Shane Beamer. There has to be an improvement on the field. The Mike Shula experiment did not work out. I can tell you a year ago at this time when I hear Lenore Sellers saying how excited he is for Coach Shula to be calling plays, I was just like, it rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, I don't know if this is the right move. Turned out to not be. It blew up on him. Last season was a disaster. I love the Kendall Briles hire. I think this is one that, every stop he's been in, Kendall Briles gets the most out of his quarterbacks. If he can't get the most out of Lenore Sellers this year, then they all deserve to be fired. Then blow the whole thing up. But I think it's going to be the opposite. I think they are going to get the most out of Lenore Sellers. We forget KJ Jefferson, how good he was those few years at Arkansas when Briles was calling plays. I think we're going to see an absolute turnaround as far as production goes. Now, the schedule's still brutal. That's the toughest part here. Is I think South Carolina is going to be better. I think Sellers is going to be improved. I think the play calling will be, offense will actually be fun to watch this year, but I am a little bit worried about the schedule. Look, everybody's got a brutal schedule. We're going from 8 to 9 conference games, and you still have a road trip to Clemson. It's a brutal schedule. But that said, this is a pivotal year for Shane Beamer. He has to have a modicum of success. What does that mean? 6-6, 7-5? Does that save his job? Probably so, but I think South Carolina fans are hoping for higher than that.
Real quick, on Kendall Briles, I don't know how much you really follow TCU. I know you're an SEC guy, but being out there in the state of Texas, was there friction between Briles and Sonny Dykes on how they wanted to run that offense? We've heard some rumors about that here. How is that relationship when you get a Briles away from TCU? What is your opinion of that and what was going on there?
It wouldn't surprise me. Sonny is very, he likes to do things his own way, and he's an offensive guy. And so that wouldn't shock me at all if they were butting heads with certain things and philosophy. this is a great opportunity for Kendall Briles to say, or Shane Beamer to say, hey, man, it's your offense. And for him to kind of get back to his roots of what he was doing when he was very successful. And it's not that TCU was bad last year. I mean, Josh Hoover, minus the interceptions, had a nice passing season there. But, that's an interesting point I didn't really think about that. Yeah, I would not be shocked at all if those two were butting heads. They're two very different personalities as well. So, yeah, this might be a great opportunity for Kendall Briles to kind of spread his wings and do what he does well. And again, like I said, if you're Shane Beamer, the smartest thing to do is go, hey man, it's your offense. Go run with it.
You were talking a moment ago about, this team being better for Carolina, but the schedule being brutal. Everybody has their opinion of what they think this team can be. What's your ceiling? How far do you think this team can go? I know Beamer said the thing last year in November about being in the playoff mix and the ranking show and all that kind of stuff. Where do you see this team at the end of the season?
Well, it's tough because, look, we always have preconceived notions about teams going into the season. And a lot of times they're proven wrong as the season plays out. I mean, there were people who thought Texas had a chance to go undefeated or be a one-loss team last year. They lost 3 times. They lost to Florida in the Swamp. It turned out to be terrible. I thought LSU was going to be awesome last year with Garrett Nussmeier returning and thought Brian Kelly had a chance to make the playoff. That turned out to be a dud. So, we look at the schedule right now and we go, man, going to Tuscaloosa in late September, that's tough. Going to the Swamp, going to Oklahoma, home games against Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, it's a tough schedule, but we're basing that a lot off of what we remember from last year. Some of these teams may be worse than they were last year. Some may be better. I mean, Mississippi State, week 3, might actually be tougher this year than they have been in recent years with Kamario Taylor back and running that Jeff Lebby system. So it's hard to get a read until we really get into the season and got to get a feel for how these teams feel. But I always like to break it up into quadrants. Like, you look at the first quadrant, you say, all right, your toughest test, you expect to win a home game against Mississippi State on the road to Alabama. Well, last time you went to Alabama, you gave them a game. You were in that game into the fourth quarter. And this is an Alabama team that doesn't even know who their quarterback is. They don't have a big-time pass rusher like a Dallas Turner or Will Anderson Jr. there anymore. So that's a winnable game. Kentucky at home is winnable. Going to the Swamp's always tough. We'll wait and see what time that game will be. If it's an early afternoon game, that bodes much better than a night game in the Swamp. So it's just kind of, once we get into the season, we'll kind of get a better feel for things. But, man, Kent State and Towson getting them right out of the gates, I want to see this offense. I want it like a well-oiled machine by the time you go into that Mississippi State game. I want to see a run game. I want to see pass protection, run blocking from this offensive line. I want to see the defense getting after it. I want Dylan Stewart to have 4 sacks going into SEC play. Like, I want all that kind of stuff to get all the kinks to get worked out through those first couple of games. And like I said, we'll get a better feel for what this offensive system is going to look like. And look, they're scoring, in the 30s, 40s those first couple games. I'm going to feel a lot different about this team, and I think we'll be saying arrow pointed upward. Maybe this is a 10-win team. We have to give them a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt. So, like I said, we won't know until we get into it. Color me in the category. I'm very optimistic on what Kendall Briles is going to bring to this team.
Let's switch gears. Obviously, you're out there in Houston. Austin's not too far from you. I've said for a while, I think one of the coaches who has the most pressure on him, I don't think he'll be fired. There's a difference between pressure and fire. Steve Sarkisian. They've given him a lot of money on that roster. Arch Manning is back. Cam Coleman comes in. There's a lot of talent on that defense. If he doesn't win a playoff game, does he go on the hot seat in 2027? Like, where is Steve Sarkisian right now? Because he's fine. He's winning games. That's not the problem. It's just the expectation in Austin on the 40 acres is a lot higher. Where is he at right now?
I think he's on the hot seat right now.
Okay.
If he doesn't live up to expectations. I mean, that's how crazy these people are in Austin. I mean, they have put up a ton of money for recruiting, for the portal, for everything. I mean, Cam Coleman is one of the highest paid players in the portal. To get him over there, they redid the entire backfield. They go and bring Hollywood Smothers, who, by the way, was on his way to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They swooped in and stole him away coming over from NC State. They got Raleek Brown from Arizona State. Like, it's a whole new backfield. Literally, I thought Texas' defense was fine last year. Steve Sarkisian said, no, Pete Kwiatkowski, you're out of here. We're bringing in Will Muschamp. It's going to be a much more aggressive defense, a lot more blitzing, all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, man, like, I have not heard the words all in more times this offseason than I think I've ever heard before about Texas. They are, quote-unquote, all in. And when you keep saying all in, we're going for it this year, if you go 8-4, 9-3, man, I think there are going to be folks in Austin going, all right, this guy sucks. Let's get him out of here. Who's next man up? And it sounds crazy to say that, but look at how quickly schools are moving on now. I mean, Brian Kelly a year ago, we're talking about being LSU's in a great spot. They're a playoff team, all this kind of stuff. And a year, not even a year later, he's fired. Like we are moving on, especially these big time programs. The resources and the money and everything involved is as big as it's ever been. They will pull the plug on Sark if this thing goes sideways. You don't want to look back and go, man, you guys had Arch Manning on campus for 3 years and you didn't even make the playoff with him, or win a playoff game. So, yeah, I think the pressure is on Sark big time this year. Texas has to be one of the best two teams in the SEC, and most people have Texas and Georgia as the two teams projected to go to Atlanta, and they have to make a playoff game, and they have to make a run. Now, here's another scenario, too, I'll play out. What if Texas makes the playoff, they win a couple games, and they fall short in the semis? Guess what? There might be a world where Arch Manning comes back in 2027 and says, you know what? I'm not in a rush to run off to the NFL. My uncle's played 4 years of college. I'm going to play 4 years of college, and I'll come back for another year. Let's run this thing back. So there's another world where that happens too. And I'd almost say that's probably more likely. Is Texas going to win the championship? I don't know. Probably not. I wouldn't put the horse on it. Would they? Could they make the playoffs, make a run, and fall short? That's probably the more likely scenario in Austin, and again, creates a fascinating scenario for 2027 where they run it back with Arch Manning.
I know you got about 2 or 3 more minutes before you have to go. A lot of new coaches coming into the SEC this year. Who do you look at in terms of between the Summeralls, the Silverfields, Golishes, and all that? Who can have the most success right out of the gate, you think?
Yeah, it's funny. We just did a show up on Locked On SEC today talking about the Florida Gators. For some reason, that's the team that everybody is buying in on, and they've got a great, that wide receiver is super loaded. Defense has a lot of talent. It's all eyes on that quarterback battle, whether it's going to be Travell Jones, the guy who was there on campus last year, or Aaron Philo, who was the quarterback with Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech. And I was told he probably still has the leg up right now because he has familiarity with the system. But I'll tell you guys this, John Summerall, man, he's got that infectious personality and attitude. You hear him talk for 5 minutes, you're ready to run through a wall, for the guy. So I see why everybody's buying into Florida. I think it's going to be tough, man. That schedule is brutal. It's really hard. That game in Week 3 at Auburn is the ultimate measuring stick for both those programs. Auburn and Florida, how good are you? Who can win that one in early September and kind of get a leg up and be undefeated going into October? To me, that's a monster game for Florida that they have to get things figured out. But, yeah, Florida seems to be the sexy pick that everybody is jumping in on, saying John Summerall has a chance to hit the ground running there in Gainesville.
Yeah, I've circled Game 6, Florida and South Carolina, year 1 coach against year 6 coach. I think the talent levels are equal. The game is down in Gainesville. You mentioned it. There's a chance both teams could really come in 5-4-1. There's a chance both could come in 2-3. Really, when you look at it, I can't remember the exact teams Florida plays, but I mentioned that Auburn game there. Chris, I know you've got some personal business to attend to, so I really appreciate you taking time out to join us. We'll get you out of here so that you can attend to that, but we'll plan to try and catch up with you next week in Tampa and look forward to catching up with you again before the start of the season.
Absolutely, guys. Looking forward to it, and pack your sunscreen. It'll be hot down there, Tampa.
I've been. Yeah, I appreciate it, buddy. Take care. Chris Gordy, again, check out his great work. They do a phenomenal job. Locked on the SEC. That's part of that Locked On network that you can go and check out. And he also hosts a show on Sports Talk 790 down in Houston. You saw it. He's all over it with SEC football, so glad to have him on this afternoon and get a little of his take. The Texas situation, we'll touch on that when we come back a little bit. There's a couple other topics that we've been wanting to get to today that we'll try and get to. Obviously, coming up at about 2:15, I believe J.C. Sherbert. I need to check on that again to make sure as always, but we'll check on that. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Thank you again to Chris Gordy for joining us. You can follow him on Twitter. He does a great job at Chris Gordy, Gordy is how you can follow him. I hope I put the right Twitter account on there. Might have tagged. Oh, nope, that's him. Okay, just making sure. He's also the Houston Astros pregame host. He does a lot.
I did see that. Yeah, I read his bio yesterday, and he's a busy guy. The thing he said about Sark is really interesting, and I haven't heard anybody say, well, he's on a hot seat going into this year, but I kind of understand where he's coming from. And Sarkisian is one of those guys, and I think you and I talked about this the other day. When you look at his track record as a head coach prior to even the first couple years at Texas, it's not that great. Like, it's okay. He was above 500 for almost every single season, save for his first year at Washington, but nobody was saying, yeah, look at that Sark guy. He's out there, he's the next Nick Saban or whatever it may be. He is somebody that has specifically benefited from being at a place with a lot of resources, a lot of money to be able to spend to bring in a ton of talent. Nobody denies his ability as a play caller. Truly maybe one of the best in college football. As a head coach overall, that's debatable. And now that you're getting deeper into this NIL era, and you're getting some of the most talented rosters year in and year out, if you keep coming up short of winning the whole thing, that pressure does rise. And missing the playoff last year, as controversial as they thought as it was, that doesn't help your case anymore. So, yeah, if Texas went 9-3 this year or something along those lines, doesn't make the playoff, and they're playing in the Citrus Bowl again, I could see the people at Texas being like, hey, this guy can't get us over the hump. Maybe we need to go in a different direction. Again, as crazy as that sounds, because I think he might have a ceiling as a head coach to a degree, that they might be like, all right, we've gone far enough with him. Let's see if we can get somebody else in here that can really take this all the way home.
Here's the thing, there's two parts to this. Sark's going to go at least 9-3.
At least, yeah.
At least 9.
That roster is so talented, you can't do worse than that.
I would assume. Look, if he goes 8-4, yeah, Dave truly. There's a difference between Texas going 8-4 and South Carolina going 8-4.
Right.
Again, you're talking at least a $40 million roster and maybe closer to a $50 million roster at the University of Texas. South Carolina's probably closer to maybe 25 is what I would assume, kind of a roundabout number.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. But again, the expectation there is championship or bust. If we're going to spend this, if we're going to donate this, we're going to give you our time here. This is what we expect. Ohio State in week 2. At Tennessee in week 4, bye week, Oklahoma, obviously neutral site game, then Florida, Mississippi State. All right, you getting some breaks in there. Florida, by the way, in Austin. So, yeah, Tennessee but then you get the bye week. Then you get Oklahoma. Again, I'm not saying a breather. There's no such thing as a breather, but again, Florida. Then it's Mississippi. So you've kind of had it. I don't want to say, again, I'm not saying down game. After Mississippi, it's the other Mississippi school, Mississippi State. Again, all right, handleable. At Missouri, not awful, not great.
Yeah, we don't look at any stretch of the season for them as like, oh, man, over the course of 4 weeks, you're not getting a breather. Like, hard game, easier game. And again, this is based on what we think of teams right now, and that could change. Again, I always throw it out there. Maybe Jeff Lebby has the best roster in all of college football this year that we just don't know about, to where by the time Halloween rolls around, you're like, man, playing Ole Miss and Mississippi State back-to-back, that's a tough ask. We don't know that yet, but that opinion could change. But yes, based on what we know right now, it looks like you do space your tough games out better than some other schools do.
By the way, and we'll get to that. I've got this on my list to send to you for the week. Camelo Taylor, the Mississippi State quarterback, is getting more love than y'all realize. Like, we're going to have to discuss this and read some stuff. Going back to the schedule thing, though, again, like, you look at Georgia, and Georgia's another one that kind of gets a break on their schedule where they don't have one of those 3-game stretches. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about South Carolina and some of the 3-game stretches that they get. And obviously, you look at it where it goes Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and then Arkansas. And at least you got to go on the road. But South Carolina, they should be better than Arkansas. And I guess if you wanted to do it, it really goes Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
What was the one we read yesterday? I think it was LSU's schedule when we were talking about Lane Kiffin that's got a 3-game stretch. There's a lot of teams who have a 3-game stretch, nothing more, nothing less, but a 3-game stretch where you're like, wow, you can probably get the first one. The second one's going to wear you out.
Mm-hmm.
The third one, yeah, I don't know how that one's going to play out. And I think it was LSU yesterday that we read. We were talking about the schedule for Lane Kiffin and where he would end up. And, yeah, you look at the end of the season, November 7th, Alabama, November 14th, Texas, and November 21st, Tennessee. There's a lot more teams who have something like that than what we just read from Texas. And, by the way, I didn't finish that, but I mentioned Missouri, and they get Missouri before another what will be a high-profile game.
Yeah, Missouri could be a sneaky team. I don't think we're giving them as much buzz this year, but you look at the roster, could be a pretty good team.
Is
man.
Missouri a sneaky team?
I think Missouri's a sneaky team.
I think that's a program. Look, it's not what people want to hear. If you're South Carolina, that's what you strive for.
Sure.
Because and it's fine, nobody likes Eli Drinkwitz, so we write him off every year.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty good coach, and then he's annoying, right? He's annoying. He's all punchable. Then you're right. On top of being a good coach, he's a developer of quarterbacks. And has he got Pribula? I haven't looked at their.
No, he's got Austin Simmons.
Austin's okay.
So again, that's kind of like that. You're not talking about it, but that could be something.
Maybe.
Ahmad Hardy's coming back for another year. You still can't tackle him, apparently. Like they could surprise some people.
They play quality football. Like they're turning into a team who's going to win 8 games. That's going to be their baseline, and then all of a sudden they're going to break out and maybe win 9 or 10 on you, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Missouri's not like just a pushover, but we'll see how it all kind of plays out. But yeah, interesting on Sarkisian. But I guess my final point on that is 9-3 at Texas and not making the playoff is a complete failure. 8-4 will get him fired. And again, they went 10-2 last year. Or they go 9-3 or 10-2. I forget if they were one of the 5 teams last year that had 10 wins.
They were 9-3 in the regular season and won the bowl game.
All right. Yeah, they beat Michigan.
And again, their argument was, hey, if we didn't play Ohio State, would have been in.
That's what it was.
Really,
that's what it was.
If you didn't lose to Florida, you would have been in.
Right. Yeah, if you didn't lose to Florida, or again, questionable if you played Abilene College or Abilene Christian instead of Ohio State, and you were sitting there with 10 wins. Maybe people are looking at you a little bit differently, but interesting on Sark. Would you take away from his South Carolina comments there? I thought it was a pretty down-the-middle evaluation of everything.
I thought it was fair. Where, again, if you're getting the most out of the North Sellers, and if we see Kendall Briles, tap into what we saw 2 years ago, and he can have similar type of results like what KJ Jefferson had in his offense a couple years ago, I think this team can accomplish just about anything. Now, again, it's easier said than done. Again, we're hearing all the right things. We don't get to see it, unfortunately, but we're hearing everything's moving in the right direction. Sellers is excited and happy and all that kind of stuff. You just need to see it translate on the field, but nobody here would be shocked if that ends up being the case. Because, again, that's what you hired Kendall Briles for, and we know what Sellers' capabilities are when he has the right offensive coordinator, like Dow Loggins a couple years ago. So we just need to see it in action. But, yeah, very believable that could be, or that Carolina could be a team that's very dangerous if they live up to the potential of what we hope they can be.
803-405, 803-404, 62100 if you want to text in and weigh in on anything we just heard. Captain Dave will get that podcast up. But we also got a great podcast yesterday with Matt Moscona. He's told me I can call him Scona.
Okay.
Scona with Matt Scona from LSU. Just go to our podcast page. And, of course, all the great baseball stuff from Jamie Bradford. Go to 107.5 The Game. Click on the shows tab. Click on the halftime show. And you can hear a lot of great content, a lot of great information in case you've had to step out and have missed one of these great interviews. Coming up next, the Crane and Cone show, a On3 podcast, has put out the top 5 games in the SEC. The top, not South Carolina's top 5 games, just the top 5 games that will be played. We'll read those to you and see if we agree. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
All right. Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave on your Tuesday here on the game. Been talking a lot of SEC this hour. Again, Chris Gordy-Gorant joining us a little bit earlier on. Bounced around to a couple different teams there. Focused a lot on Texas. And to no surprise, since we're talking about Texas, the Crane and Cone podcast the other day put out their list of the top 5 SEC games this upcoming season. And wouldn't you know it, Texas is featured in almost all of these, namely with number 1 being their showdown with Texas A&M coming up at the, last week of the regular season in late November. And this has been a game that has truly been one of the highlights of the SEC the past 2 years since this rivalry got renewed, right? Because, again, for the longest time, from 2011 until 2023, these two teams didn't see each other. Texas joins the SEC, which allowed that interstate rivalry to rejoin or restart. And I thought the past 2 years, you've gotten some pretty incredible and pretty great environments for, for both sides. And you go into last year's game between these two teams, and you had playoff implications, really the past 2 years, playoff implications on both sides. Now, 2 years ago, you had Texas A&M kind of fall apart as they got in the month of November, so they weren't necessarily playing for their own playoff lives going to that game, but Texas still had the opportunity in terms of being a top seed and all that, and I think they were still on the line to make the SEC championship by having to beat Texas A&M 2 years ago, which they obviously were able to do. And then last year, you had the situation where A&M was obviously in a really good spot going into that game, and Texas was still fighting for their playoff life. And despite the fact that they did beat A&M, who was number 3 at the time, and that was their only loss of the regular season, Texas obviously not able to get in the college ball playoff. We know Texas A&M did, and they were bounced in that opening in their first game against Miami. So yeah, I have no reason to think, and again, it's going to be 2 of the most talented, 2 of the most expensive rosters once again in college football this year. And in terms of the stake of it being a rivalry game last week of the regular season with not only maybe SEC championship implications on the line, but playoff implications too, that is certainly one to look forward to, because I think about all the potential games that are happening on rivalry weekend. Yeah, you have the crossover games like South Carolina and Clemson, Georgia and Georgia Tech, Florida and Florida State, but even the games within the conference, Auburn and Alabama, LSU and Oklahoma, that's a maybe. This game in Texas and Texas A&M has the highest likelihood of being one where both teams are maybe fighting for their playoff life at that point in time, depending on how the seasons have gone, where they've been ranked and all that kind of stuff. So I can agree. I think that's a really good one to look forward to. The one that most people might be putting as their number 1 game would be what they have as number 2. That's LSU going to Ole Miss on September 19th. As we've talked about so many times in this offseason already, the vitriol for Lane Kiffin returning to Oxford is going to be at an all-time high. We talked to Matt Moscona yesterday, who covers things down there in Baton Rouge for LSU, and he basically said, this isn't a game I want to go to, right? Because even if you're not Lane Kiffin, if you're wearing purple and gold in the vicinity of the Grove, you might get hurt, right? You might be mobbed by the fans down there at Ole Miss, who are still so angry and upset about how things have gone or how things went with Lane Kiffin. Even though after Lane Kiffin went to LSU, they still went on to have a lot of success and darn near made the national championship game. But that one's going to be at a all-time fever pitch. Again, I think Lane Kiffin's going to need a police escort in and out of Oxford, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few incidents over the course of that game, before the game, after the game, whatever it may be, because of how hot that crowd's going to be. And, man, it's going to be a good game, too, because LSU and Ole Miss, again, 2 very talented rosters, and a chip on the shoulder of both sides, so to speak, in terms of what that game's going to mean and how big it's going to be, again, for both teams as well, in terms of setting their early trajectory for the college ball playoff, because that's kind of the week where SEC play begins for just about everybody, and getting off to a 1-0 start, obviously a lot better than getting off to an 0-1 start. Elsewhere, game number 3. Georgia at Alabama. Yes, they seem to play every single year, and this year Georgia goes back on the road to Tuscaloosa, and the question here is, because Kirby Smart is said to have a Alabama problem, right? Prior to last year's SEC championship game, the only time he had beaten Alabama was, funny enough, in the national championship in the 2021 season when they defeated Alabama in the rematch there in Indianapolis. But every time other than that, Saban had his number, and then Kalen DeBoer comes in and beats him the first two times, including at home, ending Georgia's long home win streak a season ago. So this is a game that you're saying, okay, well, did Kirby finally get over the Alabama hump? Does he go into Tuscaloosa and pick up Georgia's first win there since 2007? Or does this go back to, hey, that SEC championship game was just an anomaly, and Kalen DeBoer is still getting the better of Kirby Smart? And again, like all these games, you're setting the trajectory for both teams in terms of where they're sitting and playoff hopes early in the season. Now, that game's going to be October 10th, so you'll be a few weeks into conference play at that point in time, so you get a pretty good idea, going forward, or a pretty good idea going into that game of where both those teams sit, have a few conference games, and heck, both teams can be undefeated by that point in time for all we know. But a good game, nonetheless, that is always going to be looked forward to. That's kind of become almost like maybe the main rivalry in the SEC, and I know they're not traditional rivals, but that's a game that's now appointment television every single year because the fate of the SEC championship game, all that kind of stuff, typically involves those two programs. Now, Texas is in that mix as well, but until proven otherwise, you're just going to assume that Georgia and Alabama are in that mix for playing in Atlanta, in that mix for being in the college football playoff, and I think that's going to be the same case once again when it comes to those two teams scoring off there on October 10th. There's a couple more games on this list. We'll get to that coming up in hour number 3. J.C. Sherbert also set to join Bill coming up at about 2:15 as well. As a lot of things going on with Gamecock sports as we get a little bit closer to the start of the season. Again, 53 days away from South Carolina and Kent State kicking off the season. And again, we'll talk more about it coming up in hour number 3 as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave here on your Tuesday on the Game.
Oh, it's a Tuesday. For those of you that have spent some of the day, like me, not knowing, it is a Tuesday. I'll be honest, as I deal with my health issues with this kidney situation, I missed the last break because I was on the phone with a doctor in Greenville and trying to figure something out. And again, if I couldn't do this without Tyler and Dave, I couldn't. The way I'm having to live and do things and miss days, if it wasn't for Tyler Head and for David Dare, I wouldn't be able to do this. I can't right now. And so I thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Dave, for everything y'all done for me as we go through this. And for those of you just wondering, as you know, I've got diagnosed over a month ago, over 11 months ago, August 4th of last year. I was diagnosed with kidney failure, kidney disease, end-stage renal disease. I'm not going to go into full detail. Tyler's heard me complaining today. It's a very odd situation, to be quite frank. They have not fully diagnosed me 11 months later. We just know that I probably need a new kidney, so I'm on the transplant list at MUSC Lancaster and MUSC Charleston. And in Prisma Greenville, I've gone up to Duke and tried to. I'm working to get on their list and going to see Atrium at the end of the month up in Charlotte. So I'm working to do this, but there's still a long way to go, but there might be not. Who knows? And again, I've been frustrated with some things. I was telling Tyler not to get too personal. I was supposed to have an appointment that I didn't know about tomorrow, and now it's been canceled because it should have been done differently. It's a lot. It's a lot, but I appreciate Tyler and Dave so much. And then there's so many of you out there, listeners, that have text or you hit me up on social media and just check on me. And I couldn't thank you more. I really, honestly, it really gets to my heart that people, care. I guess I don't know how else to explain it, but people are pulling for you and praying for you. And I will say, because I guess I have the podium to do it, and because I want to get healthy, if you have any interest in being a living donor and donating a kidney, please contact. You can email me. You can always email me, or I don't know. You can get in touch with me. You can call the radio station. Email is will. I'm going to give this out, and I guess if you abuse it, whatever, I'll lose on that. Will.gunner, Will.gunner at AOL.com. If you're interested and you need to call the radio station, and they'll get you in touch with me. All the facilities I've gone to, they push the living donor program, and once they find out I do a radio program, they're like, "Well, if you set it on air, you got to do it. You got to make it part of your program." Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but I guess I should do it. So if you're willing, if you're interested to donate a kidney, I will be very appreciative. And so 803-404-6100. But yes, Tyler, thank you for that. Good news, I am here now tomorrow. Appointment got canceled, so I got to let Terry know that in a second. Coming up here at about 2:15, a little after, J.C. Sherbert will join us. We'll talk some football recruiting with him and look back on the beginning of the month, as well as look ahead to SEC Media Days and some players. But, Tyler, I was really excited to talk about this, so that phone call came at the exact wrong time. Crane and Cone have they're an On3 show count. They're on an On3 show, a podcast, video podcast. They did the five top games of the SEC overall. You said you went through the first three. Pick us up. Roll through the first three that you did real quick, and then we'll finish out the last two.
Yeah, hold on. I got to get my link back up here. But, yeah, number one was Texas and Texas A&M. And I said, just kind of given the history of the past 2 years, that game in terms of rivalry weekend once again has the best chance of both teams being embroiled in the playoff discussion, seeding, SEC championship, all that kind of stuff, as it has the past couple of years. After that, of course, you have number two, which is LSU and Ole Miss, a game I think everybody's looking forward to the most in terms of the environment, the vitriol, and all those kind of things. And then Georgia at Alabama's number 3. As I said, Kirby finally got one over on Kalen DeBoer in the SEC championship game last year where Georgia dominated. And the question's kind of, okay, was that a anomaly, or is this now the point where Kirby starts dominating Alabama? Because up to that point, save for the one game that he won in the national championship against Alabama, Kirby always had an Alabama problem. Couldn't seem to beat them consistently, and even the first 2 games he had against Kalen DeBoer, he lost, including the loss at home last year, which ended their long, home winning streak. So this is like, okay, is what happened in Atlanta last year the start of a new streak where Georgia now owns this rivalry, or does it go back to, well, Kalen DeBoer in the regular season still keeps getting it over on Kirby?
It is funny that Georgia, even post Nick Saban, it is funny that the hold that Alabama has on Kirby Smart in Georgia.
Because that was the thing is like, look, everybody had this problem when Kirby wasn't able to consistently beat Saban. It's like, well, it's Nick Saban. He's the greatest coach of all time. You're not doing better than him. Okay, nobody else is either. And then when he retires and Kalen DeBoer comes in, it's like, okay, this is the point where Georgia starts dominating this rivalry. Go to Alabama and lose a couple years ago after that crazy, get down a ton of points. They come back, they take the lead. Ryan Williams has that crazy catch that puts them back over the top, and then Alabama wins that game. They go into Sanford Stadium last year and win the game, again, ending Georgia's long home winning streak. So it's like there's just something about Alabama that gives Kirby Smart problems. Again, handled his business in Atlanta, but I think this will tell us, okay, was that an anomaly, or is this now the point where Georgia now owns this? What's really kind of become the SEC's biggest rivalry in the past handful of years in terms of 2 teams that aren't annual rivals anyway. Does this flip kind of switch now, or now it's in Georgia's favor going forward?
Yeah, truthfully, and we talk obviously the majority South Carolina around here, but if you look at Alabama, if you look at Texas, if you look at LSU, I mean, these are upper echelon programs, and Tyler, the fan base is there. They expect, I get it with Alabama. You can't change a fan base that just went through what they went through with Nick Saban.
Sure.
Doesn't matter. They bring you or me in as coach, the expectation would be the same. LSU, they spent all that money. This is it. The savior's there, the guy. And not only is he going to win, but he's gonna poke the bear. He's going to tease some people. LSU's going to have some real swagger to it.
Yep.
But they expect big things in year one, as we heard from Matt Moscato yesterday. Texas, they spent a bunch of money. Texas is, in my opinion, a whole other subject, the most underachieving football program in America, without question. And so with that in mind, their fan base, you join the SEC, you're watching Texas A&M kind of surpass you. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma last year was in the college football playoffs, so you're 1-1 on that. Texas right now is going, wait a minute, we're supposed to be the preeminent program. We were the dominant force, supposed to be the dominant force in the Big 12. It was Oklahoma. But Texas is like, well, yeah, we're in the SEC. We should be the league. They're not. That's bothering them. And now you've got a $50 million roster on your hands. You got a legacy guy at quarterback. Interesting, by the way, on Arch Manning potentially coming back. Keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. But with all that said, those 3 programs, we'll have to get into that a little bit more as we go through the next few weeks, and especially next week, about where those programs stand. And even though it's year 1 for Lane Kiffin, where their job security is at. Because Kalen DeBoer, twice after the Vanderbilt loss 2 years ago, and then at times last year, has essentially been on the scorching hot seat.
Sure.
They're not going to deal with this.
Well, and here's the thing, because like you said, Alabama fans set themselves up to be disappointed no matter who the next head coach was going to be, because everything with Saban was dominance, right? And he's the greatest coach in college football history. Nobody's going to debate that. Kalen DeBoer's winning games at Alabama kind of in the way he won them at Washington. Like, all right, defense is going to be okay. We're going to try and score a lot of points, and it's not going to look pretty at times, but we'll find ways to win. And Alabama is just not used to that, right? And quite frankly, you're going to lose some games you probably don't have any business losing, which they've done the past couple seasons, and that's kind of the new norm, right? Again, they're not used to that, and those expectations are always going to be ridiculously high, but Kalen DeBoer, and again, I give him a lot of credit for taking the job in general, because we've said, I know I've said it, many people have said it for years, being the guy after the guy is the worst place to be, because everything you do gets compared to him. The best job is to be the guy after the guy
Right.
after the guy, where you come in. That's why I always said, like, hey, maybe Dabo takes the job after after the person that takes over after Saban gets run out of town, because he's saying, okay, now your expectations have lowered, and you bring somebody else in to try and bring the program back to glory again, to where the fan base isn't going to set the expectations so ridiculously high. But yeah, I mean, they're just kind of getting used to a new norm. And again, the way they lost in the playoff to Indiana the last time we saw them was very un-Alabama-like. They're going to have another talented roster this year, full of 4- and 5-star talent. Can they get back to being the same consistent playoff threat they were a year ago, or do they take a step back and become, an 8-4 team? That's going to be the big question for Alabama this year.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in this afternoon. Tyler is going to wrap up his day. That's pretty cool. Get out of here, and then are you back tomorrow?
Yes.
Now everything's changed. Now
Well, you tell me what the plan for tomorrow is.
we're going to get in touch with Terry. And
Okay.
we'll know
Terry
here.
will tell me what the plan is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we'll continue to figure that out as the day alters and changes on me almost by the minute. But J.C. Sherbert up next. We'll get to him. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is 2:17 on a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, not Wednesday, because earlier I was fairly certain it was Wednesday. It's a bummer to learn when it's when you're a day behind, or you're a day behind on what you think it is. It's hard to deal with, JC, and in our line of business, sometimes it can be a little monotonous, and you tend to lose track of what day it is. And yeah, I might have lost a little track of where we were. Monday felt like 2 days to deal with.
Yeah, this time of year especially, man, it's that lull. I actually am not sad that SEC Media Days is kind of a week later this year, just because it's less time between the end of media days and the start of practice. Because the last few years, they've had seemed like a little earlier than it normally has been, and that drag, you don't really realize it's 2.5 weeks. What are you going to talk about? And all that good stuff. So, yeah, it's just that time of year, man, and soon we'll have more to talk about.
I asked Jamie this yesterday. We debated. You and I have been around together. When do you consider it officially football season? The day after the last season's loss, the start of media day? Do you consider it the first day of pads when they start popping, or are you football doesn't start until we get our very first game August 29th?
Nah, I like the practice when practice starts for me, and it's probably from covering recruiting all those years. People don't realize this football season when you're covering recruiting is not that, not that busy because nobody's committing. You kind of keep track with who's going to what games, and then the players are playing for their high school in their season, and so it's kind of a break. And I remember, July in the recruiting business was such a big travel month because you have the opening and all these 7-on-7s and things like that. And then August, to me, the football season started. When I was kind of doing both the Big Spur and national recruiting, I come off the road and immediately, Coach Spurrier opened all the practices, and we had a Gamecock practice all day. And so for me, that's usually the time I really wrap my head around it. And then, as you get older, I think you get more impatient for some reason. I don't know why, but so then those last 2 weeks before kickoff drag very, very bad because you're just kind of sick of talking about practice at that point. All that good stuff. You're ready to get it kicked off. And, there's some preseason NFL, some high school stuff and all that. But it's, once you roll around to that opening weekend and it gets real, and then you blink and it's over. So it's just one of those things.
Next week, SEC Media Day. Let's go outside the box. Don't talk about South Carolina for a second. I think there's a lot of just interesting storylines. I was just bringing it up with Tyler, talking about expectations at Texas, LSU, Alabama, those three particular coaches. What is the storyline for you next week when we go to Media Day? Is it Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss? Is it Texas and needing to get to the playoff and probably win a game, maybe advance a little bit further? Is it Alabama and Kalen DeBoer? You got another one that you'll kind of just be interested to hear about?
I'm curious to see if Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding can, kind of get through it without saying something that makes news. That's my thing. I think so. Ole Miss and LSU is intriguing to me. The rest of it, it's pretty normal that Texas has high expectations. I know that they sort of went above and beyond with their coaching staff additions and their portal additions, and you got Arch Manning out there and all that. It kind of feels like it's time, but as far as the juicy stuff. I kind of looking forward to that and just kind of seeing, and then there's all that build up to the third week of the season with that game in Oxford. I mean, that's not even about football. That's like animosity. And you got, the LSU fan bases, they've got some animosity as it is, and they're going to Ole Miss. And I mean, that's going to be an interesting game, maybe for the wrong reasons. But I want to hear if there's any kind of shots fired because sometimes Lane Kiffin just can't help himself.
Yeah.
And Pete Golding, he'll say whatever's on his mind too. So I'm looking forward to that.
We had Matt Moscano on from LSU yesterday, and he kind of admitted.
Oh yeah, he's not a big fan.
Well, of whom? LSU or Mississippi?
He's about as big of a. Never mind. Go ahead.
I like him, but I agree with you. But that's why we had him on.
I like him. I just, he just is what he is.
But I say that because he admitted yesterday he's actually tentative to go down to that game in Oxford because of what you said, that the animosity. I don't know if it's there for LSU fans. LSU's going in with a mindset of winning the game. Ole Miss is going in. Ole Miss fans and maybe some of the players of exacting revenge on a coach that they feel misled them, cheated them, took advantage of them.
Yeah, and they're going to get the doors blown off of them, the doors blown off of them if they go into that game, and that's the focus. I've never seen a team that's like, I've seen revenge games and teams that want to get to the revenge win. But I've never seen where there's just all this focus on this one part of it. And, the team goes out there and, doesn't execute because they're worried. Maybe they get up early off that emotion, and then they're so worried about blowing them out that they forget to play, and then the other team comes back. But as far as how people will behave in Oxford, I don't blame Matt. I mean, it's a weird world. A lot of folks kind of live online now, and they kind of take what they feel and experience online and sometimes apply it to reality, and it doesn't, it's not too good for any of us. So I don't know that I blame him. I think there's going to be a lot of animosity, and I think, if you're the Oxford Police Department and, the state of Mississippi, you need to make sure that everybody's safe. It's one thing to yell and, even cuss and yell obscenities and all that, but it is quite another somebody kind of crosses the line into violence, that would be unacceptable. It's a football game and a football coach, which is very important, don't get me wrong, but not to that extent.
803-404-6100. You look at LSU, I've talked a lot about this. I think, and of course Matt and I kind of got this, there's a disconnect between right now the fan base and Lane Kiffin. I think the fan base expects things to happen right away. I think Kiffin is trying to pump the brakes on that. Do you see that kind of as well, just in your talks with people around?
Yeah, I sense that. I don't think Brian Kelly had very much I don't want to say talent, but they didn't have very much LSU type talent like we're accustomed. Like they, for some reason, they're not all that great on the interior of the defensive line, which is weird. For some reason, they're not all that great at running back. For some reason, their receivers have gone from being elite and deep and awesome to, just okay. Sam Levitt's coming in at quarterback. I think Lane can get a lot out of him. But, Kiffin knows what a championship roster looks like. And I think that, a lot of the predictions, are based on him being there and, kind of how the Brian Kelly era ended and the expectations. And who knows, they could get on a roll. They have a pretty tough schedule, but once they get past a part of it, Bill, they kind of get to be, they're a little more favorable. So we'll see what happens. But I have sensed that just based on his comments and what you hear out of Baton Rouge from the people that are kind of on the ground. But we'll see what happens. They got to lace them up and play. And they certainly do have players. I just, are they Texas talented? Would I say their roster is as good as Georgia's right now? Probably not. But they're still very talented.
Is Kalen DeBoer on the hot seat at Alabama, in your opinion?
Their fans may want him on the hot seat, but I don't know how you get around the contract he signed. It's a $70 million buyout.
Somebody's going to do that.
There's no mitigation.
So look, I understand what you're saying.
There's no mitigation clause.
We're seeing it. I no longer does that. We're seeing that. nowadays. And I just, nobody has a problem paying that money. Somebody's going to do it, JC. I don't know if Alabama's got the fund. I don't know if it's Alabama. $70 million is going to be a drop in the bucket to somebody someday, probably an SEC school. But you saw LSU go up into the 50s last year. I think James Franklin and Penn State was around the 50s. Somebody's going to do it. So I'm not sure that matters as much anymore.
I do. I think at Alabama, you sort of look at their NIL and kind of, I mean, that people think they're loaded with money. They're not. And the athletic director out there likes to spend on other sports, which, I mean, I don't know. When he signed it, I mean, like, at some point, athletic directors have to say, hey, our fans don't really give two flips about this guy anyway. He's the guy that followed the guy. Let him go to Michigan. Let him go. We'll go hire whoever. You know, because that contract is ridiculous. I mean, you know, Bill.
And he signed an extension, by the way, which I forgot about that until just now. That's crazy, too.
That's what I was talking about. The extent. It's not the contract. It's the extension. They signed him to this extension, and it said, you know, the report was, well, he's going to go to maybe go to Michigan. Okay, let him go. He's good. He's lost more games. You know how long it took Nick Saban to lose his 8th game at Alabama? I mean, well, I guess his 8th loss came early, but I mean, you know, they're good, but they're clearly a step back. You know, he's a good coach and probably great in certain situations. I don't think Alabama's the fit for him, but you know, he could get fired and walk away with all that money, and then go take the Southern Cal job, which they will hire him in a heartbeat. Because the AD there loves him and would love to hire him, and he could be making $70 million from Alabama and then still get paid however much from Southern Cal and maybe be a billionaire. Not bad for a guy from South Dakota who was coaching at Sioux Falls a few years back, is it? I mean, you know, and I think Caleb was an excellent coach. I just, you know, the lunacy of that contract just speaks to a greater issue in college sports. I mean, sometimes you just got to let a guy walk. I mean, how do you think they feel at Florida State right now? Because they thought Mike Norvell was getting the Alabama job, and now they're stuck. I mean, I see the same situation happening at Bama if they're not happy with the board. You know, so we'll see what happens.
Hit the break, come back. We'll talk some Gamecock football. Gabriel, Brownlow, Dindy. We'll talk about that. It's the halftime show. Creeping closer and closer to the first practice, to the first game. South Carolina, certain player. We've talked a lot about Lenora Sellers. Yeah, he's got to be great with Kendall Briles. Nick Harbor, is this the year he steps up? Dylan Stewart is Superman, so forth and so on. A few other players. JC, you wrote a really good piece, and I talked about it on one of my little podcasts. But I've been talking about this since last December, saying the key was to keep Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy out of the transfer portal. And but you made some really good points in a piece written on Gamecock Central over the weekend about what this young man could be and how he could be really the centerpiece of the defense there in the interior. One of the things you talked about, and I thought was interesting, was the development of defensive linemen. I don't want to say late in their career, but later under Travian Robertson and Clayton White. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been defensive players in general, but at South Carolina, but and of course Travian missed the last season as far as coaching goes, but the spring is a big development time, and so is the summer. So he gets credit for Nick Barrett, obviously, but like Monkel Goodwine came in and he had never played. I think maybe it appeared in 5 games, something like that, at Alabama. And, he got his feet wet in 2024. And last year I thought Monkel played really well. And had, almost 400 snaps. He and Barrett played a lot last season. And they've obviously both gone. So Brownlow-Dindy came in last year. I think he had 212 snaps. He played through some pain. He had some nagging injuries, but still played in all 12 games. And I think he had some really good moments where you kind of saw the light come on. Ole Miss was one of those. I thought at Missouri he played pretty well, and it's crazy because those 2 games the Gamecocks gave up a ton of rushing yards statistically. But, I think he showed what he could do. Now in the spring, a couple of folks I talked to that saw him said he really had taken it up a notch. He's 6'3", 311 pounds, pound for pound, one of the best athletes on the team. That's the reason he was a 5-star prospect out of Lakeland, Florida, is he's just a freaky good athlete for a guy his size. And he's just got to play consistent and get out there and play tough every play and things like that. So, if you look at the recent history of South Carolina defensive football development, you look at the potential and you add those 2 things together and then combine it with a little intel from spring and, you hope he stays healthy, then, yeah, I think he's a starter. Now, how good can he be? He was a top 10 recruit overall in the 2022 class. Is he a top 10 draft pick? Well, I think it's probably still his ceiling. He'd have to come a long way in 1 year, but we've seen it done before. But if he can just be really good, South Carolina has enough depth at D tackle to where I think he will make a significant, more of a significant impact than maybe he did last season. I have seen, not everybody's Kyle Kennard or Demetrius Knight that comes in 1 year and they're all of a sudden really good. Especially on the line of scrimmage, I think the Goodwine path is more what we're going to see for Brownlow-Dindy. And, if he takes that next step, he could obviously be a big part of the South Carolina defense this coming year.
I was going to say, I think the big part is it's just year 2 in the program. And he comes off that ACL injury. I was talking to somebody the other day. We were talking more about Austin, my son. But we were referring to, an ACL injury is still, I know he's been away from the game I shouldn't say he's been back from injury for almost 3 years now. But last year was the first year he had to get out and really, really operate on it, right? Like really had to play. And I'm with you. I think that's why you saw towards the end of the year. Now, there's another interesting guy to go along with him, and I don't think we're talking about him starting. It seems like we're talking a few other people, but Troy Pikes kind of came on at the end of the year, had a good Clemson game. How do you see him fitting into this rotation?
I think he's definitely, right now, the Illinois transfer, Tomowa Dora-Jaye, I think to me, is a projected starter. But I think Pikes is right there, along with Kelby Collins, kind of at that athletic I call it the athletic spot. You know, a lot of times you want to have kind of a bigger guy and then a more athletic guy. So if you can get a T.J. Sanders, then he's an everything guy. But you know, they sort of, and I wrote this this morning on thebigspur.com. You know, the D tackles last year only had 2.5 sacks, and I think they had 10 the year before. That sounds dramatic and sounds like they had a bad year. I do not think they had a bad year because sacks are not everything as far as good defensive tackle play. And Goodwine and Barrett, I thought, played their butts off at times. If you remember the Alabama game, how well those guys were playing. But, you know, it is beneficial when you get a pass rush up the middle. A lot goes into that, but I think Sanders and Tonko were very, very good at that. I think Boogie Huntley even was good at getting pressure up the middle. Maybe he only had 1 sack, but he was pretty good at that. So I think it's beneficial. And I think they were intentional in the portal by adding Collins and Tomiwa, by getting some of these more, you know, not the biggest guys, but they're more athletic. They can give them some pass rushing oomph. And then with Noah Clark, Shane Beamer in his press conference mentioned that Noah at 340 was not just a plug guy. He was a guy that can rush the passer. Travian Robertson mentioned Aiden Harris, the other freshman, had some good pass rushing moments. So I think Troy Pikes fits into that pass rushing defensive tackle type of mold. They won a big recruiting battle to get him. He got better and better as the year went on. So I certainly I wouldn't count out Troy Pikes from being a starter. I wouldn't count out Troy Pikes from being a significant contributor on this team this coming season, because you're absolutely right. You know, he was really good in the Clemson game, had some big plays early, and I thought played well and was starting to come into his own.
How do you see at this moment, you put out your depth chart, and I don't have it in front of me, don't quite remember it. How do you see the depth chart at defensive tackle kind of playing out going into the fall camp and then allowing for practices to see if guys can move around?
Yeah, you know, nothing's set in stone. It's just a projected depth chart, you know, and so I've got Gabe Brownlow-Dindy and Tuliwa Durajaye as my starters. You know, right behind them, you know, I'd have Noah Clark, the true freshman, at the bigger spot, and then Troy Pikes, or I know people hate when you do or Kelby Collins at the other spot. Then behind, you know, the smaller side, I would have Aiden Harris there, and then Jordan Thomas just slightly behind Noah Clark, and I may flip those two on the bigger side of things. And Caleb Williams and Christian Ingram factor in there too, to a certain extent, but I'd have to kind of go slot those. But I think, you know, when Beamer said they could go 6 deep, he told Jamie Bradford that during his interview with Inside the Gamecocks, where we had him on. I believe him. And I think that's so beneficial. I think when you can keep your big guys fresh for the fourth quarter and you have the depth to not have a big fall off when you're substituting, or even if you do and you can sneak them in depending on down and distance, it's just so helpful because, you know, they don't get gassed, and then, you know, the offensive line doesn't substitute a whole lot. So you kind of have an advantage fatigue-wise, I think, when you can roll in waves of defensive linemen, and I know Travian Robertson, kind of just like Brad Lawing, his mentor, likes to do that. So I think the depth is there. I do think that collectively across the board, everybody individually has got to take it up a notch for them to be really, really good. But I do think the potential's there to have a really good year with the whole front seven, really, on defense.
Come back. JC visited a recent Major League Baseball park. I saw him and his lovely wife and some pictures hanging out. We'll get his take on that and a few other topics as we wrap up the program with JC Sherbert. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Wrapping it all up with J.C. Sherbert on the Tuesday show. Get geared up for tomorrow. We'll have a few more guests, talk a few more football teams as we get going. A week from today. It's actually, Dave, you said 2:55 next week. So 1 week and 6 minutes. Tuesday, yeah. Tuesday, it's at 2:55. Shane Beamer will take to the podium, and we'll have that for you right here on 107.5 The Game and discuss that afterwards, or we'll have Jay and Terry cover it. So you can plan accordingly. Get ready. Football season is almost here. But baseball's rolling along. In years, for the last, I don't know, JC, 4 or 5 years, if you'd have been sent over to whatever they're calling it now and the White Sox game and you had to watch it, I would have thought that you had been offered prison or to attend a White Sox game, or maybe you did something in prison and this was more punishment. But you and Nat, y'all went, I believe I saw over the weekend or towards the end of the week, and looked like a good time.
Oh, it was. We lucked into some pretty good seats, and right there on field level and left. It was right field. Carlos Cortez, who played for the Gamecocks, he starts for the A's in right field, or left field. I'm sorry. So I was maybe hoping we were behind him, but it was fun. Don't get much of a break these days, so we took a day to go watch the White Sox. We go just about to one game every year, and I will say that with them winning and more this year, they have a young and exciting team, and the fans are more into it. I mean, it got sad in the last couple of years, and then the draft was on, and the White Sox had the first pick, and so they kind of streamed that live into the stadium, so they got to see the pick, and everybody was happy about that. So it's it's a good atmosphere. People talk outside of Chicago about the Cubs a lot, and the Cubs are definitely the tourist attraction, but like the normal people go to the White Sox games, and it's a little more Chicago on the south side there. So that was she's a big White Sox fan, so that's one of the reasons we went.
Well, good luck. Is there more of a affiliation with the White Sox than the Cubs, or just more fun, or?
No, she's a White Sox fan. I mean, she grew up on the south side.
Gotcha.
You're not both. You're one or
right.
the other. I found that out, but it was. And man, look, Wrigley's probably a lot of fun. I've still never been there, but one day and check it off the bucket list. But I just don't really have much of a choice when it comes to that particular rivalry.
I understand. As we wrap up the program, for those that don't know, the Gamecock Takeover Week or Gamecock Takeover Day is taking place, and right now, and I'd forgotten this, JC. They're showing the South Carolina Texas baseball game. The Gamecocks dominating this one. Coming up at 5 o'clock today, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I hate to harp on this, but I do find it amusing given what we ended up with at the end of December. What was J.C. Sherbert's thoughts after the opening drive against Virginia Tech?
Oh, yeah, sitting up there with the Mad Dog, Phil Mullinax. We had seats and our wives, and, I'll just say pretty excited about what I saw, so the rest of it just kind of got depressing. And, in that first game, I really didn't walk away from that first game thinking there were any kind of issues that couldn't be corrected. South Carolina State obviously was a red flag. And then, with Vanderbilt, you kind of go, well, Sellers wasn't healthy the second half. But then you just kind of started looking. I mean, Missouri, you couldn't run the ball. And then LSU, and it just snowballed. And, but yeah, I thought that the first drive was wow. I mean, this is neat, and it obviously, unfortunately, didn't continue.
No, it didn't, and you're right. a fun game and loved playing Virginia Tech, and neat to see the Gamecocks in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But obviously, the remaining 11 games didn't go quite as planned. JC, always appreciate it as usual, and we look forward to catching up with you next week. We'll do that, and next week we'll be down in Tampa. I assume I said Jamie said he wasn't going. I assume you're past your days of having to attend SEC Media Day.
I'm probably never going back unless we take the show on the road one year or something. But no, that's not. Now that they stream it and all, there's absolutely zero reason for me to be there.
I understand. Well, we will. We'll see how we'll plan next week accordingly with everything going on, and we'll do that. But
sounds good. Buddy.
Have a great rest of the week, and look forward to catching up. Hopefully next week.
You too, my friend. Take it easy.
Take care. 803-404-6100. Well, we're out of time now, so we will wrap it up. I think I'm back tomorrow. We got to figure some things out. Again, schedule adjustments throughout the day. A lot going on. Is what it is. But the plan is, I don't know what the plan is. I'll let you, you'll know. Just tune in or follow me on Twitter at Will, W-I-L, Gunter, G-U-N-T-E-R. You can always go and use the X machine, the Twitter machine. Y'all have a great rest of the day.
All right, 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the postgame show, where for the next 2 hours, I will pretend to hear almost every word Terry Ford says back to me, because the first of 2 World Cup semifinals is kicking off from beautiful Dallas, Texas. So I'll be watching that, and Terry will be doing something else. I'm not sure what, but something.
I'm watching soccer. What are you saying?
So, so then we could just do. Here's the rest of our show. Then everybody.
Governor just said he'll do 3 to 6.
Okay, come on, Bill, because Bill doesn't care. While talking about Van Halen, right?
Exactly.
And Aerosmith, yes, yeah. Chris and I were joking about Bill. Bill is a huge country music fan, which is great. And as he knows, I am not. And Chris Logan, our amazing production guy, where we were talking about Van Halen, and I looked at Chris and I said, unless Brooks and Dunn is going to cover a Van Halen song, Bill will not know any Van Halen song.
No, not at all.
He's like, I think I know some. I was like, well, you know Jump. And he goes, I might. I don't know. And I was like, it's because Jump. And
That's
he's
when
like,
you go, it was originally done by George Strait.
I've probably heard that's what I should have said.